gave a pretty good introduction to me. In fact, she made me kind of want to meet that guy that she was talking about. So I'm not going to spend very much time talking about my past, but I do want to give you some things that I've learned on this journey, my career that I've had this last 10 years, and some principles that have been really important to me that have been life-changing, actually, in several instances. The first is, I have 10, by the way. We'll see how many we can get through. I think that I have till 10:45. Is that right? Okay, sounds good. So the first is that hardships that you experience are really blessings. Okay? So I've reflected several times in my life on different things that have happened to me. And one thing that always strikes me as amazing is that the times that I've grown the most, the times that I've become a much better person, are the times that I actually went through difficult hardships, real hardships. What's amazing to me about that, though, is that hardships are tough. They create havoc in your life. They create pain and suffering. They derail plans. They stifle progress. But hardships can also do something that almost nothing else can. Hardships can compel you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. They can change the way that you see things, and sometimes hardships can create your opportunities if you compare them. So I'll give you the story of a hardship, because Netmark was actually born from a hardship. So 10 years ago, it was 2007. I guess a little more than 10 years ago, because it was probably April of 2007. I was in college. I had one semester left. I just had my summer semester. I had one class. That summer it was a 6-week class that I needed to take. And then I was done. Really, really grateful to be done, by the way. So I'm about to start my final semester. I had a job lined up that was out of state. And because I had that job lined up, we had a start date for after the summer semester. We put our house up on the market. We sold our house. And then I quit my job, the job that I was employed at. We had some savings, and I felt like I needed to spend the time to work on that last semester, pack up our house, and get ready for this new job that I had accepted. And a week before the semester started, I got a letter in the mail. It's interesting that they sent a letter, because you think about the world today, it's so digital, but I got a letter in the mail that said that my class was canceled. It was the only class that I needed. I'd sold my home, I'd accepted a job, and now this class that I needed to graduate was canceled. So I did the only thing that I knew what I could do. I ran up to the college, I met with the professor, told him the situation. He couldn't help me. So then I went and talked to the dean, and he couldn't help me either. I couldn't persuade either of them to open that class back up. I couldn't even get them to let me do it online, which nowadays you probably could do that because there's really good platforms that allow for that. But I couldn't get them to let me do that online. And so I sat there, almost in tears, just wondering, what the heck am I going to do? What am I going to tell my wife? I don't have a job. I don't have any prospects. What am I going to tell this employer that's hired me? What am I going to do? Where are we going to live? How are we going to get, what? Like everything that I've been looking forward to, this is my moment that I've been looking forward to for years. It was just crashing and burning right in front of me. And so I went home and I told my wife. I said, hey, this is what's going on. She was really supportive of me. And I said, I have to stay for the winter semester so that I can do this. And then I called this employer and I let them know, and that opportunity eventually went away. But I let them know, and we had support. We decided that because we had to move out in a few weeks, we decided sort of to buckle our pride, and we called for parents, which I'm really, really grateful for them, by the way, because they let us live with them that summer and that next semester while I finished school. We lived in their basement. I had this weird thing happen to me, though, that summer. I've never really been a depressed person at all. I've always been a pretty happy person, but I felt really depressed that summer. It's when you're doing a lot of things and then you end up not doing anything, don't have any responsibility. You think you're going to be going at like a supersonic speed, but then you find out that you're sitting in the basement and the world's passing you by. It was a really terrible feeling. So my wife came to me one day and she said, "So what are we going to do?" And I was like, "Oh, like sakes, I don't know. Like, I guess I can go find a job. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll go find a job." I was getting a degree in finance. There's not very many finance opportunities in Southeast Idaho. But I thought, well, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll go get this job. I'll go get a job. My emphasis was corporate finance. I knew I probably wouldn't find a job in that, but maybe there would be some personal finance jobs I could get. So I started looking. I found a job in financial planning, which was great. It was a good opportunity for me. I didn't know very much about it, so I thought I could learn. And when my semester ended, then I could move on to other bigger opportunities, what I wanted to do. So I got into that. I didn't have any clientele though. I found out pretty quickly that you have to have clientele. People don't just come to you, that's what I was hoping, is people would just come to me, but nobody came to me. So I had to start calling contacts. I had to start reaching out to people from my past and seeing if they'd meet with me. I didn't even care if they would sign up for anything I wanted to pitch to them. I just wanted to practice, really, just to get my foot in the door in the finance business. And so I'd call people, and I'd call people, and I'd call people, and I did this for several weeks, maybe a couple months. And there's a person that I thought of, his name's Chad Heath, who's an old friend of mine, that him and I used to work together. And I bump into him occasionally over a couple of years' time. And I found his phone number, and I called him, and I said, "Hey, you want to come in?" He said, "Yeah, I'll come in." So he came in while I was telling people, we were talking finance, talking personal financial planning. He mentioned that he had this company he was starting, and he said, "I bet you'd be interested in this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sounds good. I'll talk to you about it. Like, you came out and visited with me, at least I could do is go out and visit with you about what you're doing." And so he took me to his house, or we went to his house. I don't remember if it was that day or a couple days later, but we went over to his house, and he started explaining about digital marketing to me, what he was doing. And he kept on, I don't really remember much about the conversation, he kept on talking about SEO. And I was like, SEO? And I'm like fresh off of all these finance classes, so I was like, what? In my head, I was thinking, what does Chad know about seasoned equity offerings? Like, what? This is awesome though, he's in finance, I didn't even know it. This is awesome. So anyways, I found out later that SEO didn't mean that. He meant search engine optimization by that. But him and I had met and we talked, and I got feeling comfortable and decided that that was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to try that. So, which was completely different than what my plan was, because my plan was really, I was going to go to New York City and I was going to work at an investment bank. And I had a friend that was working at one of the big investment banks there, and I'd been working with him over that time frame to get a job there, and I felt really good about that prospect. So we started Netmark. It's been a real blessing to me, and a miracle even, I'd say. And the reason that I would say that is because it derailed everything. A couple months after I graduated, I remember coming home and watching the news, and there was this financial collapse and this recession that the U.S. economy was going into. And I even remember one night watching the news and hearing from some commentator on TV that 2007 was the worst year to graduate in finance in over 70 years. And that they were talking about all these droves of people that were being laid off in the industry. And I remember looking at that thinking, oh my gosh, what would have happened if I would have moved my family to New York? What would have happened? And this other job opportunity that I was telling you about, I looked them up a few years ago. I can't find them. I don't even know if they're still around. I'm not sure. But it was a real blessing Chad I really admired Chad. Chad was already an entrepreneur. He's a little older than me, a lot smarter than me in a lot of different ways. He taught me a lot of things while we worked together. And we've done probably a dozen different companies since him and I got together. And here I am 10 years later, 36 years old, serving a full-time mission here and able to share some of these experiences with you. I feel really, really fortunate. Okay, so back to what I was saying though, okay? Hardships in life are really blessings, okay? There's no other time that you'll be stretched, that you'll be compelled to do things that you wouldn't otherwise do, except a hardship comes along and forces you to do it. It forces you to be uncomfortable, okay? I called that year, I remember telling my wife one time that this was my black year, that this was the hardest year of my life, and that there were so many things that were going wrong. We even had our furniture get stolen when we were moving. There was just so many things that were going wrong. But I don't look at it as my black year anymore. That was the year that my career started. That was the year that that was the year that Netmark was born. That was the year that everything I've done since was born. And it wouldn't have otherwise if it wasn't for those hardships. I would have never been led over to Chad. Okay? So I have some advice. The next time that you're experiencing a hardship, because you will, that's the world that we live in. The next time that you experience a hardship, ask yourself, what does Heavenly Father want me to learn from this? You know, what should I do? What does He want me to do? Okay, what does Heavenly Father want me to learn from this experience, and what should I do? Don't be surprised though, and especially don't be mad if you get a hardship after praying for a blessing. Okay? When you pray for a blessing, don't be surprised if a hardship comes. Okay? Because I think that they're one and the same. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is hard work gives you something that natural talent cannot. Okay? Hard work gives you something that natural talent cannot. Natural talent is a good start. That kind of opens the door for you. But it's hard work that gets you to the finish line. Okay? So people come into me now, it's kind of, it's too bad that it's this way, but people come and they meet me now, or they'll come into my office now, and they think that it was always this way. They think that, or maybe I think, they think I got lucky, I put a sign on the door, and customers just started coming in, and everything was great. But it was never that way. It took years before I started to feel comfortable in what I was doing and got good at what I was doing. So in the beginning, I wore every hat for the company. I was the salesperson, the marketer, an accountant, a janitor, a technician, everything. I was doing everything, okay? And everything that I was doing, I was learning how to do it at the same time I was doing it. Okay, so I wasn't waiting for me to be ready. I just got in and I just started doing it, okay? So some interesting things kind of happened as a result of doing that. Like my wife said, we started out in a two-car garage. There was a heater in the garage. I remember thinking, thank goodness, because it was November. It was October, November. And I remember thinking, good, there's a heater here, it's cold. And I found out that really quickly the heater was broken. So we didn't have a heater in there. I remember coming in at before 8 in the morning, and I remember it leaving after 7 or 8. All the time, almost every day for years. Working hard the whole day. I remember working a lot of Saturdays. I remember what my wife said too, going door to door to different businesses, trying to sell the product that I was selling. And I remember experiencing a lot of failure. It took me 2 months before I actually made one sale. I couldn't sell what I wanted. I couldn't sell a product. And it was really cheap too at the time. I would never even think about doing it for what I was offering it back then. I can't believe I struggled so much trying to sell it. I remember being laughed out of businesses that didn't think that what I had to offer was of any value. Maybe didn't think I knew what I was talking about, but I remember being embarrassed because it had happened a couple times, and I remember there were other people in the room, and it was embarrassing to be kicked out the way that I was. I remember nobody would give me any money. Nobody. I couldn't even get $1,000. So we racked up a lot of credit card debt, trying to make the business work in the beginning. But I also remember people fighting to give me their money. People fighting to give me lines of credit. People being willing to do anything at a drop of a hat for me. I remember going door to door, and after I figured it out, selling more than 10 cells in a single day. And so, for nothing for months, I could do more than 10 in a day. There was one time I did 11, and it was something my day started like 7 in the morning, and I didn't get home till almost 11 that night, because I was out there working hard. I remember I remember when I could start coming home earlier than 7 o'clock. I remember the day that I only had to fulfill one role at the company. I remember when we opened our first location outside of Idaho. And I remember the moment that I realized that my business was growing faster than I could push it. It was really amazing. I hit this critical mass, and it was way ahead of me now, and I was trying to keep up with it. Okay, so one thing that I learned, there was no shortcuts, okay? Don't waste time looking for them. I've helped lots and lots of companies, lots and lots of people. I've never been able to find a shortcut that replaces hard work. Okay? It doesn't matter how much talent you have or anything, and there's plenty of people that will sell you on a shortcut solution. You just have to go home and watch your bank account get bigger. That's never happened. Okay, with all my experiences, nothing beats hard work. I'd like to show you a video real quick on that.
So, a couple years ago, this economist decided that he would see how accurate your draft position was as a kind of predictor of your professional performance. Do the quarterbacks drafted number 1 end up being better quarterbacks than the quarterbacks drafted number 10 or number 20 or number 50, right? So this guy looked at 50 years of data of hundreds of different quarterbacks, and what he discovered was that the quarterbacks drafted in positions 1 through 50 ended up having inferior professional careers than the quarterbacks drafted in positions 50 through 150. Right? So what's the explanation? Well, the explanation is that maybe those quarterbacks who aren't as tall and strong and fast and accurate, who haven't won as many games, who aren't as good looking, compensate for those disadvantages by working harder and being hungrier. And maybe working harder and being hungry is a better predictor of being a great quarterback than having every natural advantage in the world, right? Being a great competitor, in other words, is rooted in overcoming obstacles, not just capitalizing on every advantage that you've been given. That's what the great ones can do. That is compensation. You took something away from somebody, and they came back stronger. And that is a key component of a successful competitor that some people have and some people don't. There is only a magical thing called, I want to work hard enough to master this, right? That's what it means to be great at math. So that's the first lesson about great competitors. It's a really, really simple, dumb, obvious lesson, which is the greatest competitors work harder than everybody else. And that's the piece of the puzzle that I think we are most likely to forget when we look at successful competitors. We sometimes think that they operate in a little bubble all by themselves, and that succeeding in the world is entirely up to you. It's all about what an individual can do. And that's wrong. That when you look closely at the lives of successful competitors, what you invariably see in their corner is a coach, a mentor, an institution that stands behind them. that makes the kind of hard work and diligence and experimentation and compensation that lie at the root of successful competition possible. So that would be my final word of advice to all of you.
He says that so much better and more eloquently than I do. So work hard to achieve your goals and don't solely rely on your natural talents, okay? All right, so this was, I try not to hit on things that Deb and Sue talked about the other day, because I know a lot of you were there, but I couldn't help but to at least mention this. I know that you talked about this. Surround yourself with excellent people, okay? Without exception, surround yourself with excellent people. I had this really interesting experience. I worked at it when I was younger. I worked at a company that was across multiple states. There was an owner, he didn't live by me, but he'd come around once in a while to our location, and he used to intimidate me. I used to be a little scared when he'd come by, because he was so smart. He had so many employees and so many things going. And I'm just this kid, I'm just this student, I'm just Josh. I used to get scared, I used to mumble when I talked to him and get nervous. And so one day, after a few years, I ended up on a trip with him, and him and I had a chance to talk for a couple hours. And we got talking, and at some point in the conversation, I realized something. I realized, oh, this guy, he's smart, but he's not Einstein smart. Like, he's good. He's maybe not Einstein good, like I maybe envisioned in my head. We kept talking. And then I thought, well, you know, I wonder, is it possible that I'm as smart as this guy that I'm talking to? Am I smarter than him even? Like, when we got going, and we got home and I wrote it down. So that was something that was really impressionable to me, and I thought about that for a long time. Why on earth, or how on earth did this guy become so successful? He's as smart as I am. Maybe I'm smarter, I don't know. How did he get so successful? And then I continued to work for this company, and I realized one day, everybody that worked for him, everybody, his inner circle, I wasn't one of them, his inner circle, every one of them was excellent. So he was smart enough to hire excellent people. So I bring that up to give you 2 points, to make 2 points. One, there are 2 types of bosses or 2 types of people that are out there. There's those that are afraid of people that are better than them. They worry that that person will make them look bad. They worry that maybe it will cost them something. Maybe it'll make them feel bad. Somebody that's better than them. So maybe sometimes they avoid hiring people like that or working with people like that. Maybe they try and suppress the talents of others. Maybe there's a lot of jealousy that's there, so it strains the relationship. But then there's also bosses that empower, but that hire people that are better than them, because they know that it will make them even that much better. And I realized that day that I was probably more like the first guy. I liked being the best in the room. I liked being the smartest. But maybe that wasn't enough to get me where I wanted to go. And so it changed the way that I saw things. Now, I'm always looking, if I'm trying to fill a role, I'm trying to find somebody that would do a better job than me in that role. I don't care if it makes me look bad. I don't care if he comes in and revolutionizes it, and everybody's like, well, hey, what was that idiot Josh doing for so long? Doing it that way before this guy's awesome. I look for people that are better than me and would do a better job, and I embrace those talents. Point 2 about surrounding yourself with excellent people. There's a guy named Johann van Helmont. He was born in 1577. He's a Flemish chemist. It's really interesting. There was a debate back then in the 1500s as to where the mass of the tree came from. Where does it come from? Is it the air? Is it the water? The soil? Is it the sunshine? Where does the mass of the tree come from? Nobody knew. And nobody heard of photosynthesis back then. Where does it come from? So he decided, well, I'm going to test it. going to see where it comes from. So he ran an experiment. He took a clay jar, he filled it with mud, then he put it in a furnace and he dried it for a couple days to make sure that all the water was out of it. He weighed it. He planted a tree in it, a willow tree. He weighed it, and then he started this experiment. He was so careful with the experiment. He only gave the tree rainwater so that it didn't have any minerals in it. So it was just rainwater, and then he even put a cover over it to make sure that no dust came in and replenished lost soil during the time that he ran this experiment. So he did this for 5 years. He did this. And then at the end of the 5 years, he did the reverse. He pulled the willow tree out. He dried the soil again, and then he measured everything. That's what he found. That the tree weighed 169 pounds, 3 ounces, and it weighed 5 pounds when he put it in, so it gained 164 pounds over 5 years. He weighed the soil, and the soil weighed 199 pounds, 14 ounces. So in that same 5 years, it lost 2 ounces of mass. So the tree grew 164 ounces, or 164 pounds, and the soil only lost 2 ounces. So he concluded, the only thing that he probably could conclude at the time is that the mass of the tree comes from water. That has to be where it comes from. But we know that that's not true anymore. Now today, we know that the mass of the tree, over 95% of the mass of the tree comes from the carbon in the air. Something that you can't see, feel, touch, smell, right? It's just the substance that surrounds the tree. You are the tree. The people that you surround yourself with will eventually be who you become. Okay? Surround yourself with excellent people so that you can become like the tree. Okay, this one is a really important one to me. It's maybe less business, it's maybe more philosophical, but it's a really important one nonetheless. I want to share with you like 4 truths that I know about being happy. Okay, I know that our Heavenly Father wants us to be happy. Okay, what's the name of His plan for us here on earth? Plan of happiness. He wants us to be happy. He even sacrificed His Son so that we could be happy. We were born to be happy. That's the second thing. Our Heavenly Father wants us to be happy, but we were born to be happy. Okay, Joseph Smith said, happiness is the object and design of our existence, and will be the end thereof if we pursue the path that leads to it. We were born to be happy. Number 3, happiness nurtures motivation and strength. Okay? There's a man named Dr. Richard Wiseman who once said, happiness doesn't flow from success, it actually causes it. And then the last is that happiness, it's not all a choice. I know that there are things that are out of some people's control, but it starts with a choice. And the Book of Mormon actually tells you how to do it. So if you want to know how to be happy, well, I'll give you the verses right now. I wrote them down before I came in. Read the chapters that these verses are in. 2 Nephi 5:27. And it came to pass that we lived after the manner of happiness. And then flip over to Alma 50. Alma 50:23 says, behold, there never was a happier time among all the people of Nephi since the days of Nephi than in the days of Moroni. Even at this time, there never was a happier time. It sounds like they were even happier than in the days of Nephi. And then in 4th Nephi 1:16 it says, and surely, so go to 4th Nephi, it's one chapter, but, and surely there could not be happier people among all people who were created by the hand of God. Could not be happier people. So go read those 4 chapters. If you don't want to, I'll tell you what he says in them real quick. He says, 1, that the people obeyed the commandments that were given to them. 2, they created and they nurtured families. And 3, they worked hard and accomplished many things from their hard work. I found this to be true in my own life. And I know I'm short on time, so I'm actually going to skip my example, but I found that to be true in my own life. Have a good attitude. That's the fifth thing I want to share with you. I'm going to start going a little bit faster through some of these. When I first started, nobody knows what I know or does what I do, or was doing what I was doing. So I couldn't hire a digital marketer. I had to hire like a web designer or a web developer, right? And so I've gotten this habit of hiring based off of 3 characteristics. It was ability first, aptitude second, and then attitude last. And like 5 years into my career, I was training an executive level manager to replace me or some of my job responsibilities. And I was training him on how to hire people, and I realized that my very best people, all of them, except for maybe one, all of them had 0 ability on day 1, including myself. I didn't know how to do what I was doing. Okay, all of them had great attitudes, 100% great attitudes. So I realized I was hiring people, like it naturally, like the way that I hired it made itself this way, that I was doing it a difficult way. So I wasn't doing it the right way, so I flipped it around. And I started hiring attitude first, then aptitude, and then ability. I don't even care if you know how to do what I do, or know how to fulfill a job responsibility. As long as you have a good attitude, I know I can teach it to you. Okay, so have a good attitude. Almost everybody in business struggles with the how question, okay? So in the typical business environment, you'll run into all the same questions you get everywhere else: the who, what, why, when, where, how. The what is the task. So when someone gives you a what, it's the task that you're supposed to be doing. It's what do you want me to do? What's the task? The why is your purpose for the what. Well, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this again? And then the how is your execution plan for the what. Okay, and it encompasses everything else. So the who, when, where. It's all part of the how. Okay, how am I going to figure this out? This is the hardest question to answer. Okay, most people get the first 2. Okay, what do I need to do? I need to increase sales. I need to increase customer retention. And you solve this problem. Why do I need to do it? Well, my boss raised my sales goals. The company's trying to expand right now. Clients are requesting it. But most people can't figure out, how do I increase sales? How do I increase the retention rate? How do I solve this problem? Okay, so if you figure out how, that's where the money is. Okay, that's the most complex of the questions. It involves the most pieces. It takes the longest. It's the hardest. But that's where the money is. Figure out your how. Don't just know what and why. Figure out how. That's where the money is. Master the how. Take care of the things you've been given. So we've been doing network for a few years. We already had a lot of success, but we plateaued. And I was doing a lot with the sales and marketing in the company. And nothing I was doing was working. It was driving me crazy. I couldn't increase sales for the life of me. And our company was just flatlined. I didn't want to work at a flatlined company. I wanted to keep growing. And so one day, after months and months of this, I finally prayed about it. And I don't like to pray about things like this unless it's after all I can do. So it took me several months before I was desperate and said, okay, Heavenly Father, I do need some help. I don't know how to get past this point. And so I said a prayer, and this interesting message sort of get relayed to me while I was praying. Take care of what I've given you, and I'll bless you with more. And so I thought about that, and I'm like, okay, how do I do that? And I took it real seriously. I went to work the next day or that day, and I decided that I wasn't going to do sales and marketing, because I was trying to get new business right then. Based off of my answer to my prayer, I was just going to focus on the fulfillment for a few months, okay? Do a better job with what I'd already been blessed with, okay? The business I already had. So we did a lot of things. I jotted a few down here just to give you some examples here of what we did over the 6 months. We improved our processes and systems. We templated our reporting. We revamped our onboarding process. We moved from spreadsheets to a project manager. We created some online Salesforce, some online tools. We instituted better training. And it was a lot of work, but none of it was sales and marketing. And what's crazy is after about 6 months, I was able to step back and take a break. Our company had doubled in size. Over that time frame, I wasn't even trying to grow the company. I was just trying to improve my products and services for the customers I already had. So I'm a huge advocate of marketing, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you have to take care of what you've already been given before you can be blessed with more. Just do it. I know I'm bumping into the question and answer period, but just do it. That's probably one of the most important things. Lots of people feel like they need to be ready to do something. You're never going to be ready. So, I'm still not. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So, just do it. That's how you're going to learn it all. When you do it, you gain experience. Experience gives you wisdom. Wisdom gives you understanding. So doing it is what will give you your understanding. Okay, if it's not risky, it's probably not going to be life-changing. That's number 9. If it's not risky, it's probably not going to be very life-changing. So, in fact, I'm actually going to skip that one altogether. But just know if it's not very risky, you're probably not going to change your life very much. So if you do need to take some risks, but take calculated risks. And then lastly, I'll tell you that above everything else, it's interesting my experience and the way that I thought when I was a kid. Some of it's funny, some of it's almost embarrassing. If you asked me what I wanted to be when I was a kid, I wouldn't have told you what most people would say. I wouldn't have given you a career. You know what I said when people ask me what I want to be? I want to be a billionaire. That's what I want to be. I don't care how I get there, I just want to be a billionaire. And at some point, I realized that was unlikely, but there wasn't very many of them. And so I scaled back. I just wanted to make hundreds of millions of dollars, and that was good, right? And then I was going through college, and I had a wife at the time, and wanted to spend time, more time with her, and get through school. And I remember at one point I was thinking, well, okay, I could just make $100 million a year, then that would be okay, I guess. And it's funny though, because I've realized that I've had nothing and I've had everything. And there is no correlation with my happiness between having nothing and having everything. I've been really happy when I had nothing and really happy when I've had everything. I've been really sad when I've had nothing and really sad when I've had everything. There's no correlation with happiness. The only thing that drives that happiness all the time is my family. And at first, when I first think of my story, I think, man, I must have beat the odds, because I had 2 kids when I started, I had a wife that I had to take care of, and I was starting this business. Okay, so most people that I was competing against, they were still single. They didn't have to go home like when I did to take care of the kids or help their wives or their husbands. And so you might look at that and you might think that I had this disadvantage. But it's never a disadvantage. That's why I succeeded. My family is my why. They're the reason that I stayed late. I probably wouldn't have without them. They're the reason. She's the reason. Like when I found a job and my whole world was falling apart, I probably would have taken the summer off. I probably felt like I deserved it back then. Love your family as you journey through your career. That is the most important thing. Not being a billionaire or a 100 millionaire or even just a millionaire. Your family is the most important thing above all else. And I leave that with you in Jesus Christ. Amen.